A very warm welcome to our series, The Open Space of Application Operations within SAP BTP. So this was our entire series, and today, unfortunately, we have our last session on SAP HANA Cloud, recurrent monitoring, and an automated status report generation. So today we will have a great presentation on how to implement automated checks and other really very useful tools and services for you. But before I hand over to our expert, Beezer, I would like to point your awareness to the other two series we have still running. So one is the Universe of SAP BTP in a nutshell, and the other one is the SAP Garage series, episode 6. So the episode 6 will be on June 7th. And in addition to these various series we have for you, we also have practitioner forums. We have 5 different forums for you lined up. The Garage series I just mentioned, the Screen Personas, SAP Fiori, SAP Business Technology Platform, and SAP Build Process Automation. If you are interested, please write to me in the chat and I will share the link with you. And with this, I'm already ready to hand over to my colleague, Beezer Simenov. Over to you, Beezer.
All right. So yeah, thanks. Thank you, Tanya, for the introduction and the welcome. So yeah, hello everyone, guys. Welcome to our webinar. And as Tanya mentioned, unfortunately, it's the last one. But still, I really hope that it's gonna be beneficial and you can gain a hands-on experience on some particular use case. So let me share my screen and just have a quick walkthrough. So the main topic of today's webinar is gonna be to see a real use case inspired by a customer. I don't have that the permission to mention the exact customer name, but if someone of that team watches the webinar or watches the recording, thank you. Really appreciate it all of your feedback and participation. Yeah, it was really nice collaboration with that customer. So the focus is going to be on SAP HANA Cloud and the recurrent monitoring and an automated status report that gets generated out of that reporting. So I already have mentioned that that's the third session. So if you had watched the first and the second, like we had talked about the alert notification services capabilities, you have seen that diagram. So I really wouldn't spend time now to go through that one. Just one note and disclaimer for the people who are joining for a very first time, just check out the previous 2 sessions and you can get more insights about the alert notification and all the capabilities. So absolutely the same. It is applied for the automation pilot, which is the automation engine, multi-purpose automation engine that fits in many different use cases, and that gets consumed through the BTP cockpit. It has a UI so that the users of the automation pilot can create, maintain, model, and execute different type of commands through the UI, and actually you can minimize all of the effort needed to build those commands. So for the alert notification, all the details and different explanations on capabilities, use cases, and so on for the automation pilot are already recorded in the previous session. So if you have missed those, just take the time and go through these recordings. And yeah, so that's over again, very quick going through the previous use cases in order to see how we were growing and extending the use case. So in webinar 1, we have covered the capabilities of the authentication automation pilot, and also we had a hands-on demonstration on a basic use case that was synthetic monitoring, and we were checking the API responses of a mobile application. Then in webinar 2, actually, we were covering 2 use cases. Use case number 1 was a health monitoring check for a HANA Cloud. And that was for that use case, we were using the provided and exposed metric service REST API for the HANA Cloud, so that the automation pilot was calling that API, and based on the response, we were able to identify whether or not the HANA Cloud it is available, and then the automation pilot, if the HANA Cloud is not available, was triggering a remediation action. Yeah, we have seen as a third use case during the webinar 2, we've seen how the automation pilot and the authentication can be used to monitor messages which were not consumed through the SAP event mesh, and which, based on our conditions and logic, were ending up at the that message queue within the event mesh. So, if that was the case, then the automation pilot was triggering an event through the authentication, and at the same time, the automation pilot was applying and triggering actually a possible remediation action, which was restarting of a specific Cloud Foundry application in our BTP infrastructure. So actually, with those 3 use cases, we have witnessed really the multi-purpose and the wide range of use cases that those 2 services, authentication and automation pilot, they can be bind and used. So just to extend and see a really nice use case, and I'm a big fan of that, frankly, and especially that it's something that it's not just brainstormed within our dev team, but that was a call from a real life and real ops team operating more than 1 HANA Cloud instances. So here we go, and let's briefly talk about that and see how the automation pilot can execute a couple of different actions against more than 1 HANA Cloud instances, get the details and transfer those to the authentication and Jira. So let's see the use case. The use case as a context was that there's an ops team, and that ops team was responsible for more than 1 HANA Cloud. And on a regular basis, the ops team had to make sure that HANA, these HANA's instances, actually, they're compliant based on with particular policy. And that policy was related to a couple of checks. So they are grouped like by 1, 2, 3, and 4, but of course the priority, it might vary, and actually you can extend those checks with more and more based on the everything that the automation pilot can do. So, but in that particular use case, we wanted to make sure that all of these HANAs, which were available in our landscape, first they're compliant on the IP settings level. Meaning that once you create, an example, your HANA Cloud through the BTP cockpit or like through CLI and so on, you can define either that HANA Cloud instance will be available and accessible just for specific IPs, or for BTP only IP addresses, or it will be blocked and it won't be possible to be accessed. So in our use case, we gonna be forcing the HANA Cloud in questions to be available only for well-known and secure IP addresses. Then we wanted to make sure we want to make sure that all of those HANA Cloud instances, they have at least one backup during the last 3 days. So we're going to be checking the backup history. Then just to make sure that we follow some security practices, we want to double check that the database admin user, it is deactivated. And as well as a last check that the automation pilot is gonna be doing, it's to use a provided alert within the HANA Cloud and expose the information, actually to pull the information out of that alert from the HANA Cloud, and which is whether or not there was logged a suspicious entries as per the audits available within HANA Cloud. So we're going to be executing one by one all of these commands to more than one HANA Cloud. And based on the responses here, the automation pilot will be creating a Jira ticket with all of the commands for each of the checks. And then, yeah, that Jira ticket, we're going to see how it gets created and then later on updated by the findings of each of these commands. And then the automation pilot at the same time will be ingesting an event to the alert notification service with details about that particular Jira ticket. So back in the time, there was a question whether or not it is possible to attach to actually to embed an attachment to an email. So that's a kind of workaround for us. So instead of attaching all of those big list of findings, we will be embedding within that email notification a link to the Jira ticket that has been created by the automation pilot. Then we will be sending those details to the DevOps team or SRE team, and we're gonna see the findings. However, just one note, in case for some reason, because like that's the positive scenarios where like the automation pilot was capable to go and like do all of those checks, send the findings and so on. But also there's a question, right, but what's going to happen if for some reason HANA Cloud is not available and it is down, or like there's a network issue and any of these commands, they fail, then what would be the use case? In what we did in that POC, actually, because that was a kind of POC back in the time when we were developing it, was that in such case, the automation pilot will be pretty much the same thing. But instead of creating a Jira ticket with all of the findings, then that Jira ticket, the finding of the Jira ticket, it's going to be an explanation that the check has been failed, and that Jira ticket will be assigned to a specific person. In our use case, that's going to be myself. So let's assume I'm a member of the ops team that gets the Jira tickets that are related to failed checks, and then manually I need to go and validate what has happened. And at the same time, the automation pilot will be sending an event to the alert notification service, but with a different level of severity, because like for a successful check, the email that we're gonna receive is gonna be with severity info, like everything was done, the Jira ticket has been created, that's just an info email for your information. And in case the check executed by the automation pilot fails, then the severity will be set to critical. So yeah, pretty much that's a quick explanation on the use case, and you see that diagram. So now let's jump and see how we have built that one. And in case you do have any questions, just you can write those as comments and questions directly in YouTube, and I'll try to answer these. So yeah, let's start with the BTP cockpit, where actually you have, now you see that I have created 3 HANAs here, HANA A, HANA B, and HANA C. Actually, there are even 4, but that's in a different space. However, in our use case, we use HANA B for productive applications. So I will be playing with HANA A and HANA C. Just one note, for the use case that we're gonna see, we need to have the service keys. So for each of those HANA, actually you need to create the needed service key. And from that service key, what is important, what is important to get, it is the URL for the JDBC connection. And you need to grab that URL till port 443 and keep it for now. So then here we see the HANAs, and actually just let me refresh. That's the HANA Cloud Central cockpit. Just to make sure that those 3 HANAs are running successfully, right? Let me just, all right. So yeah, everything is fine. HANAs are up and running. Then, just to see if I go in the alert notification service, then if I go to the subscription that we have created in advance, and why I go through that one is just to do a reference to the event types that we will be ingesting into the alert notification, and to show that with just one subscription within the alert notification service, actually we can cover 2 of the use cases for a failed execution and for a successful execution from the automation pilot. So pretty much here, we have built 2 conditions, and maybe I need to go to the conditions. Just bear with me. Right, it loads now. Right. All right. So the first condition, it is a weekly report type, and then it goes with the event type, which is equal to weekly monitoring report. And that's an event type that we expect the event that will be ingested automatically by the automation pilot to use that one. And we're gonna see just in a minute, once we go through the automation pilot UI, how that works. And the other event type that we have created as a condition, it is event type which it is related to failed weekly monitoring report, right? So and as you see, based on the name, that's the condition and the event type that will be ingested by the automation pilot if the check from the automation pilot fails. Then as per the previous demos, pretty much I have created a use case. I have created actions which are to push the events to my demo Teams channel, and to send an email to myself, and also Kalyan Simichijski, who is the product owner and who really participated and prepared like 90% of that use case. So he will be spammed as well, all together with me for those use cases. So then if I go to the subscription that I started with, so as you remember, the subscription, it's the binding between the conditions and the actions, because if we do not build that kind of subscription within the alert notification service, we wouldn't receive any type of alert and action. by the alert notification. So this is why we have created that subscription within the alert notification, which pretty much it's with the name HANA Weekly Monitoring Report. And then we were choosing two conditions. Either we get an event which is from event type weekly report, or we get an event which is from event type failed weekly report. And if that happens, then we want to send an email, as I mentioned, to Biser and Jan, and at the same time we want to push a notification, an instant notifications using our Microsoft Teams. So yeah, that being said, everything was set up in the alert notification. Then going back to the automation pilot, where all of these checks, as I mentioned here, from 1 to 4, they're built. So we have used a wide range of different set of commands, and let's also, however, let's start with one note that the expectation it is that commands get scheduled, and yeah, as you see here. So I have scheduled that command on a particular regular time intervals, and just if I go on the scheduled execution here, and that's the weekly monitoring command, which is customized for that webinar. This is why it says webinar. And if I go here, I see that it is executed on an hourly basis, and then on each 5 minutes within that hour, which means that on each 5 minutes, the command will be executed once. But of course, it depends on the use case of the ops team. In my understanding, like that check is done once per couple of days or even weekly. But yeah, if you'd like to be executed as more as possible, actually that's the maximum amount of executions that you can get. Each 5 minutes, the command can be executed. In our use case, I have disabled that one because I will be running it manually. So yeah, but in case you go with an automated execution, how you can figure out that was triggered automatically, it's by simply checking also the executions. And if I go back to the executions view within the owner, you see the TO, the T007, and so on and so on. So that's that means that's the user, which is the automation pilot itself, that was triggered the command. And if you see in an example biser.simonov, that's myself, and that's like a manual execution of the command. As well, if I go back here, one note, it's if you go with automated execution of that command, also that means that all the inputs should be referenced, should be created as an input from your catalog, so they can be fetched automatically. Just make sure that all of the inputs are fetched automatically by the command when it gets executed. Why so? Because in example, if I go to one of our testing commands, maybe just let me see. Yeah, like that one. Over there, if I try to trigger the command, you see that we have kept some input keys which are mandatory and which are expected to be provided manually. That's in case like you want to test how it works with different endpoint, with different HANA instances and so on. But if we want that command to be executed in a scheduled manner, obviously either we had to provide some static inputs here within these input keys, and then reference those inputs through the different steps within the execution, or actually what we did together with Kauyan. It is when I go back to the command, we kept the input keys empty, and actually as additional values, which can be set by just clicking the add button here, you can reference an input catalog that you have created, an input from an input catalog that you have created. And if I go and if I type webinar, yeah, HANA Cloud Instances webinar. Here it goes, and then you simply have to click on the add button, and then you have the reference to already provided inputs, which can be referenced later on. And how that works. So in example, if I take the HANA Cloud Instances webinar, right? So here we see the details for the instances, region, HANA resource group, and the sub account. And later on, in example, if I go just for, of course, we're gonna cover all of these executions, but if I go into the enforce access, then you see here, in example, in that expression, how I reference to HANA Cloud Instances webinar, and then I'm taking the input that it's available within that set of inputs, which is specifically the region. So I can reference any input from the HANA Cloud instances that I initially have added as additional value here on a later stage when I need it. So it is a quite cool feature in my understanding. So yeah, and basically what we need as inputs. So BTP technical user, we already have covered that one in the previous webinar. So it is a technical user for my sub account and my space that it's needed for certain set of commands. We're gonna see down the road for which ones. Then for the Jira credentials, actually, we're gonna be using one of our SAP Jiras. So we need pretty much the host name of the Jira server instance, username and password. Then ANS credentials. Yeah, we also have covered that in the previous use cases. So there from the alert notification service instance binding keys, we can fetch the URL, the producer URL of our alert notification instance. We can take the username and the password, which is the client secret and the client ID. And yeah, then
Peter, may
yeah,
I perhaps quickly interrupt? We have a question.
sure.
Perhaps before you go further, can we give dynamic values to input?
Dynamic values for an input. Well, we can give we can give a dynamic values for the input. We can see and we can transfer those values along the execution. And actually we can you can see how that works in that particular use case. In example, however, just to make sure, perhaps you can specify the use case and what type of how you understand the dynamic values, because like yeah, I think I will reply to that going through the use case and the other executions. But if not, also please specify like how, I mean, what is the use case and what type of dynamic values you would like to be included here. Because like if how I get it is like we start a particular command, and then based on the response, like we take the input from a response and we use that input within the command on the next steps. But if and you're gonna see that in this use case. But if that it is not the case, really do not hesitate and write another command or just send an email to me with a question, and I would be glad to step in and talk, and just to make sure that you have my email address. So here it is, my email address. It is biser.simeonov@sap.com. And also that's an email address for Dimitar Donchev, who is the area product owner covering both alert notification and automation pilot. But yeah, maybe you can write to both of us or just me. Yeah, it doesn't matter really.
I just posted your email address.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Nice. Right. And also just another one, based on some other use cases, like we had the use case where we had to provide a unique IDs for, like we had to provision different BTP accounts automatically for an ops team. So you can imagine a use case where one ops team had to provide a BTP sub-account with particular services and applications and specific entitlements and user roles and permissions and role collections. So that ops team was responsible for a lot of dev teams. And even I'm not sure how frequently, but let's say quite frequently, that ops team was requested, hey, can you please provide me an environment, a test environment? I need another test environment, and so on and so on. So that was a time-consuming effort for that ops team. So what we did, it is to do a POC and validate that it was doable, like to automate the whole process of creation of sub-accounts, entitlements, and so on. And obviously, we had an option to provide a particular unique IDs for the sub-accounts and the spaces, of course, which are meeting certain naming convention. And for that use case, we were preparing like a custom script that by running the command, it was generating custom ID. It is a kind of dynamic input, but yeah. I'm not sure if that's also your use case. So, but yeah, let's see how we go further and how we we are transferring different inputs along the different steps within that execution and even between different commands. So yeah, those are the inputs needed to start building the commands. So then, yeah, the first step obviously is like we want to create a Jira ticket, and luckily we have provided the commands for communicating, interacting with Jira, and we're gonna see a couple of these commands. So we have used a provided command, which is create Jira issue, and you see here the provided commands with all possible input keys, such as Jira server, password, project, user, additional fields, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, you can explore it in further details. I wouldn't go one by one through all of these, but yeah, as we can see, like for the Jira server, we take the input, same for the password. Like we want to set a particular project, and we know that's an existing project. Let's say that's the project for our ops team. So dynamically, we wanted to create the when exactly that check was executed. So we are taking the particular day using an expression. Then yeah, we take the user from the inputs, and that's as well an interesting part. Maybe I can zoom in. So for the description, we provide a customized description based on the region. Also, we list the organization, the sub account. We also provide details about the space and the different instances. And when I am saying instances, actually, I forgot one important disclaimer. So within the HANA Cloud instances here, within my input, which I'm using to get and interact with the HANA Cloud instances, you should be creating an input which is instances and which is from type array. And we have marked that input as a sensitive. So you're not seeing this is why you're not seeing the values. Why so? Because I have created here, okay, just bear with me. That's a wrong application. Yeah, here we go. So actually, within the array, you should provide actually a valid array containing details about your multiple HANA Cloud instances that should be part of that check. In our use case, if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, when I was creating the HANAs and I was accessing the service keys, the service binding keys, yeah, we've seen connection URL. So this is why you need the connection URL, and then you should take the user and the password and the resource name, which is the HANA instance name. Then you should copy that array and keep it within the instances field, within the instances input. So yeah, and actually from that input, we're gonna use actually the information from that input. As I mentioned, we see the resource name HANA A and the resource name as HANA C. So we're gonna use that input later on along the execution to display the needed information and to create the needed information within the Jira. So yeah, then here we go. As for the instances, yeah, we take the HANA Cloud instances, and here it goes with the map option. We take the needed details, such as the resource name, which is available within the HANA Cloud webinar.instances. Right. That being said, let's go to the next command. So basically now with the create Jira issue, we have created the Jira ticket, and we have provided description what exactly that Jira ticket it is about, meaning like a kind we are setting the scope of that particular Jira ticket. Now let's see the next step, which is the enforcing of the access. So for that command, just one note, since the assumption it is that we're gonna have more than one HANA. So this why it is important to have the command for each, and that command executes it executes the command multiple times, and it provides an input for each execution. Pretty much it is a kind of simple command to execute a command multiple times, let's say that way. Then actually what we do, it is within the parameters. Sorry guys. So it is within the parameters to specify that we want to run another command that will be executed multiple times, depending on how many HANAs we are approaching and how many HANAs we have specified in the service instances. So then that command, it is allow access to HANA Cloud, and yeah, just it is here. It is a command that we have built, and based on a provided command which says which is about to updating Cloud Foundry service instance. If you remember, in webinar 2 we had another command from Cloud Foundry related to Cloud Foundry service instances. So it's pretty much like that one. And what that command does, it helps us to update parameters on a particular service instance within Cloud Foundry. So yeah, that being said, we have used here the command to allow access, and pretty much we are taking the execution input region. From the execution, we are taking the region for the HANA Cloud, the resource name, that's the name of the HANA instance, the organization, and then we want to whitelist specific IPs and make sure that those IPs are applied. And which are those inputs, which are those IPs, we can see from the execution input addresses, and we're going to see that in a second. Then we have applied a wait job just to make sure that it has the needed time to apply the execution, and then pretty much it's the end of the command. So that being said, within the default values here, we can see that we provide an object which it's taking the input values for the technical user. And if you remember, I said that for certain commands, actually we have a couple of options to interact with HANA Cloud. Like we are communicating through particular commands which are provided and which are interacting with the BTP itself. And for those commands, we need the technical user and the password. And the other set of commands that we're going to see, it is the command for which we interact not with the exact the Cloud Foundry service instance. In example, it might be HANA Cloud or another Cloud Foundry service, but we use a specific command to interact with the HANA Cloud and run HANA Cloud JQL, SQL, sorry. So we're gonna see that down the road. So here, back to the enforce access, we are taking the technical user password, region, and so on, resource group, and we are providing details about the particular IP addresses which we expect to be whitelisted, and if not, to be enforced. Then next command, it is that we want to walk the results out of the previous command, enforce access, into the Jira ticket that we just have created in the previous step, actually in the very first step. So then we use for that command another command which is provided, and yeah, correct, it is that one. And which is over again from the catalog Jira SAP CP, and which help us really easy to add commands into the Jira ticket. And let me just go back. So here, then we have specified the command which says allow access for the following IP addresses in addition to BTP. And then we are hard coding. Actually, we know those IP addresses, and then we are hard coding these. And yeah, then we reference to, as I mentioned, to the previous Jira ticket that we have created. And in terms of that's also related to the question back in the time, is it possible to interact with the dynamic inputs? So yeah, then for that command, in example, walk enforce access results, actually we take the output of the create Jira issue, and we use it as an, in my understanding, input for that command in order to know for which ticket we want to add the command. So that's a kind of the transferring data and inputs from one step to another one. And also going through the demonstration, we can see how we even can transfer data for between different commands. Completely different commands. So now, yeah, saying that that check has been completed and we have added the needed inputs within the Jira ticket. Then next check that we would like to do, it is to double check whether or not there's a backup available for these particular HANA Cloud instances. And yeah, over again, we have used for each to repeat the command. And in reality, really the command that gets triggered here, it is check HANA Cloud backup. And we see that the default value, it is set to age threshold, it is 3. And we're going to see what that means. So accessing the command in question, which is check HANA Cloud backup, okay, just let me, it should be here. No, it should be here. Right. Check HANA Cloud backup. So for that command, actually, we have used the, as I mentioned back in the time, the other option to interact with our HANA Cloud instances, which is the command to execute HANA Cloud SQL statement. And that was that is also provided command, and that was released on the end of maybe Q3 last year, and which also the boosts the interactions for ops teams and DevOps teams to your HANA Cloud instances, because quite easy, you can apply that command and plug it to any use case which is related to executing any type of HANA Cloud SQL statements. And back in the time, even like we had a demo on the TechEd 2022, it is also recorded and publicly accessible. For that demo, you can see how we were executing that particular command in order to identify wrong statements, figure it out the severity of those wrong statements within the HANA Cloud, and in case it reaches certain threshold, then even it is possible to terminate that statement as a kind of remediation action. And all of that was done through the automation pilot and using that particular command. So yeah, then what we need for that command, it is a connection URL, password, resource name, and we have added actually here the age threshold, which is the backup age threshold in days. And like we want to have like for 3 days in a row backups for our HANA Cloud instances. Then yeah, then for the exact check backup, we take from the input the connection URL for our HANA, and then we run that particular statement. Here you can see the UI of how it looks when you're building the statement. So even in addition, you can play with adding different parameters, add authentication. You can configure any trust certificates, and yeah, you can. I mean, that's also, we have seen in the previous webinars the advanced options to play with the results transformer and success codes for the APIs and so on. So those the last 2 tabs, they were not something new. So yeah, once we have prepared that statement, and then we can use that command to check the database, whether or not there's an available database for the last 3 days. Then yeah, similar to the enforcement, we want to track all the results which are returned by executing that command directly in Jira. And yeah, here there's some formatting of the response. So yeah, we're gonna see the output in the real execution. Then we want to validate whether or not the database admin, it is an active user. Then we have developed that command, which is over again based on the executing HANA Cloud SQL statement. And that's the exact statement that we are running to our HANA Cloud. Basically, we want to check that this particular user DB admin, it is deactivated. So yeah, that's how the statement looks like. Then within the log check user, we walk all of that of the response directly in Jira. And yeah, as I mentioned, the last one, we want to fetch the data provided by the HANA Cloud itself, whether or not there was a suspicious activity within the HANA Cloud audit logs. So yeah, let me just go and find that command. Here we go. So for that command, we use the HANA Cloud SQL statement, and that's maybe I can zoom it a bit for you. So that is the exact SQL statement that we use in order to fetch from the HANA Cloud audit logs the inputs. And actually, it's for the guys that are much more experienced than I am. So maybe even there's a more clever manner to fetch the data from the HANA Cloud audit logs about that suspicious behavior. But yeah, by running that SQL statement, you're gonna get some result like how many attempts and so on were available as suspicious behavior. So then going back to the command itself, yeah, nothing new. Within the log check suspicious activity, we track the response directly in Jira. And then we use that command, which says resolve Jira ticket. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of different commands to interact with Jira, and not only with Jira, but with other incident management systems. In that case, we use provided command to change the status of existing Jira ticket. And then we send an event to the alert notification service, for which we provide the information. And as I mentioned, the severity, it is info, because if we end up to that step, our understanding is that all of the checks, they were done, everything was fine, we were able to enforce the IP settings, the database admin was deactivated, and so on and so on. Then we simply need to report to that ops team our findings. And yeah, we provide the information. And then over again, within the body, actually the body is quite interesting to me. Like we specify that the weekly monitoring was completed, and that's a kind of hard cost, but dynamically we built the URL to the Jira ticket that just has been created by preparing an expression and referencing the Jira server, and then the Jira output issue, which can be used for the ops team to see the entire report later on. So yeah, that being said, you have seen the successful end-to-end scenario. And since the HANA Clouds, they're running, I will be triggering that command. And my expectation is that everything will be executed successfully, and we're gonna see the Jira ticket that will be created. And then over again, the idea is that command runs automatically on a particular time interval that it's set and defined by you. But just because of the demo, I'm executing it manually. So now by just
time check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's ideally it runs fast, and we're gonna see the output. So yeah. And by clicking on that drop down, we can see also the commands which I have referenced So over here, if you remember, like enforce access was related to we were playing that for with the command for each, and then actually we were doing a reference to another command which is enforce access. So over there you can see the other commands that it's triggered by that execution. Same it goes for the check backup, and so on and so on. So yeah, then we see that the command was executed successfully, and I have missed, but within the output, we are outputting the value for the Jira ticket that just has been created. Now I will be accessing that Jira ticket here, and yeah, we see that, or again, that's the date. And then here we see the space, we see the HANA Cloud instances. It is the resolution, the status, it is set to completed because it was a successful check. And pretty much like we didn't assign the ticket to anyone because like there's no need anyone to take action. Like we keep that just for our information. And then what we do is to track all of those checks directly as a command within Jira. So yeah, and we, as we see in red here, that's done on purpose, of course. The database admin, it is activated, so it is marked as red. Perhaps we can tune up the command, so if that's unactivated, like we can assign it and don't keep it as completed, but just because it is a demo, like we did it that way. So in green, like we show the checks which are fine and like no further action needs to be done. And yeah, then we see just one suspicious entry for HANA A, and for HANA C, there are no suspicious entries. And if I check my teams here, and if I go and look for my demo channel, right, so here it is the report that I've seen. Sorry, here it is the instant message that I have received. And then by checking, just okay. So by checking my email address, yeah, all of that info, it is important, but the most important, it is the link, the dynamically built link to the Jira ticket. Then by clicking on that, I can go and yeah, see the details. So just in 2 minutes, I will show the negative use case, because like I mentioned to you that, yeah, everything is fine, but if the command fails, like what should be the behavior. So in example, something that I didn't show to you is that on each of the steps, enforce access, check backup, and so on, on each of the steps that we interact with the HANA Cloud instance, we have specified a status change listener that instead, in case the command fails here, then we would like a particular command to be triggered. And that particular command, it is something that we have built, such as processed failed weekly report. And for that command, and that's also a kind of, I'm trying to answer the other question. So here, like we take the input, we take the output of the create Jira issue, and that output will be used later on as an input for the process failed weekly report. Yeah, we also have the execution metadata, execution ID of that command. So why that's needed? Because if that command fails for any reason, HANA Cloud, it is not available, whatever, then automatically this command will be, this command, the weekly monitoring webinar command, will be triggering the command that it's going to be doing some stuff related to failed weekly report monitoring, because that's going to be the case. And then that's the second command, which is a failed weekly report, as I mentioned, triggered only if the first one fails. And pretty much that command will be taking the Jira issue ticket from the previous command, and it will add a failure command. Here it goes, like with the execution input Jira issue already provided by triggering that command, just like 15 seconds ago, we have seen how. Then we know the Jira ticket, and then we are adding that particular command. We are saying it has failed the check, and like you need to do something. And then because the command, the weekly report has failed, then we want to assign the ticket to a particular user. In my case, that's gonna be me, and send an alert to the an event to the alert notification, which is gonna be with severity error and category alert. So then I will simulate that command. So how I will simulate that command? It's by accessing the HANA Cloud instances webinar, and here I will be changing the space. So in example, I will be adding HANA 1, right? There's no such Cloud Foundry space. So just let me just double check that I have changed it, HANA 1, all right. So now I will be triggering the very same command that was going successfully just like a few minutes ago. And that command, yeah, we see that just has failed, saying space, whatever, it is not found in your organization. If I go into the executions, we see that automatically the command for processing failed weekly report has been triggered, right? And if I now open my email address here, immediately I have received an email saying weekly monitoring step has been failed. You can find more information here. And when I click on the link, right, we see that the priority, it is set to high, and automatically that has been created, of course. And then assignee, it is set to myself, and we see the command which is provided here, and also a link to the automation pilot execution. So in case like you want to dig why exactly it has been failed, like you simply need to click on the link and explore further details. So yeah, guys, that was the end of the demonstration. Hope I was able to answer the question, but over again, if that's not the case, just send an email and yeah, approach me. So
Great.
that's from my
Thank
side.
you so much for your excellent presentation. There is one ask for further information on the automation palette, but I mentioned that you can perhaps add the information in the comments area after the session is over.
Right.
And
okay, definitely.
We are 3 minutes over, so I would like to thank you so much again. And of course, a big thanks to our attendees for joining. I hope I will see you again in one of our other sessions. And with this, a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.